Hi guys, week 2, busy being bigger, and we are talking about depression. And I am going to be completely and totally honest. I almost didn't record this video. And I'd have to say that's because, I wanted to record this video when I was feeling great about myself, when I was like, oh, life is great, life is awesome. But that's actually not how I feel right now. And maybe that's a good thing, because it's going to force me to be honest. More honest than I think I would have been otherwise. This is like the 8th time I am trying to talk about this, and it's harder than I thought. And I know that's because my coming out of depression has been so recent, and it's still something that I struggle with. So I want you to know, if you're struggling with depression, you're not alone. There's a bunch of us out here. In America alone, every year, 14.8 million people struggle with depression. And that's just the people that are speaking up about it. It's no telling how many people aren't talking about it. So let's talk about it. Let's be honest. My struggles with depression began when I was 14. And it was not until I turned 25 that I was actually ready to deal with my depression. And the thing is, I would go to therapy. I took antipsychotics, I took antidepressants, but I was never really willing to deal with the underlying issues in my depression. And that's because I wasn't ready to deal with my self-hatred. I wasn't ready to deal with my feelings of abandonment. I didn't want to touch any of that. I pretty much wanted to get over depression like all of a sudden. I wanted to just wake up one day and not be depressed and be like, oh, well, yeah, everything's great. But that didn't happen. In fact, I spent so long running from dealing with my depression that when it caught up to me, I damn near had a nervous breakdown. Like, that's how long I ran from my issues. But I told myself about 8 months ago that I was going to spend the next 6 months dealing with my issues. I was tired of just being so emotionally unstable. And I didn't want my feelings of self-worth to keep coming from other people. I didn't want to constantly have to have people around me to validate my existence. I wanted to figure out what the heck is going on in my head and my heart that is keeping me bound in this depressed state. And at first, I thought it was going to be something really easy. I was like, okay, here's the deal. Let's look back at your life. 14, birth mother, left you, abandonment. There's your depression issue right there. Figure it out. Face it. Okay, it's fine. You're fine. Moving on. No, none of that happened. In fact, when I decided that I was going to face my depression head on and face my underlying issues, I got even more depressed. And I was pissed off. Like, I was pissed off. And I couldn't even be mad at anybody except myself. And it was really because I had never realized that I hated myself. And it took me standing in front of my mirror, telling myself that I was beautiful, for me to realize that the whole time I thought I was hideous. I really would look at myself in the mirror and I would get all dressed up and I would take a bunch of pictures, but I didn't like anything about the way I looked. That was a real eye-opener for me, to realize that I hated myself. And that was partly why I was feeling depressed. Because I felt like there was no point to my life. There was none. I was like, well, obviously, if my mom left me, then maybe I really don't need to be on this earth. But let me explain something to you. It doesn't matter who leaves you or who stays. You are still worth loving. You are still worth living. And you still have a purpose. And that's something that I really, really had to understand. I spent years and years in relationships that I should have never been in because I wanted somebody to validate my worth. I needed somebody to tell me I was beautiful because I didn't feel beautiful on the inside. So as long as they're telling me, that means I'm beautiful. But then whenever the relationship went sour, when we broke up, I was always like left feeling like, oh my God, I must be the worst person in the world if they broke up with me, you know? And that's not healthy. It's not a healthy existence. So when I did make up my mind that I was going to spend months really figuring out my issues, a part of that for me was no dating under any circumstances. And I haven't been dating in a long time, but I had still left my heart open to the possibility. But for the 6 months that I set out, I had to close ranks in on myself. I had to say no to every outside influence that was going to be detrimental to my mental health. I had to put me first. And I think one of the things that we struggle with as human beings is putting ourselves first. And that's necessary. Our mental health is so necessary. You have to get you together before you can be there for anybody else. You can't pour from an empty vessel. You can't conquer depression if you're unwilling to spend enough time with yourself to figure out the underlying cause of your depression. You have to take that time. There's no shortcuts. There's no way around it. When you make up your mind that you are going to tackle this thing, you got to put you first. You got to dig deep. You got to find you. My journey of overcoming depression led to myself. And that kind of sounds so weird. Like, what do you mean you found yourself on your journey to overcome depression? Like, what? Didn't you already have yourself? But I didn't. Depression for me was like breathing underwater. It was like living life but never touching life. Living but never actually experiencing life. Deep breaths, but breathing underwater. So you're not actually breathing. That's how it was for me. You know, I was lying to the world and to myself about how I felt about everything. I wasn't being honest. So my journey to overcome depression led to finding myself, finding the bigger me. And I can tell you the exact day, the exact time, the exact moment that I remember taking a deep breath for the very first time in my life since I was 14 years old and not feeling like I was worthless, not feeling like I hated myself, not feeling like I didn't deserve to be alive. And I can tell you it was March 12th. of this year. And I had just come home from attending the Step into Greatness VIP dinner. And while I was there, I had walked up to several people and I was networking and I was talking and I'm talking about Bigger Than My Diagnosis while I started it. And you know what happened? People listened to what I had to say. And when I got home that night, I remember sitting on my bed like, oh my God, you did it. You started a company and you're talking about your issues and people are actually listening to you. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror like, you look great. And I was standing there like, you look really great. And it was the first time I had literally felt like I could fly. It was like I had wings. And it was the greatest feeling ever. And when I find myself falling into some of the habits that I had when I was severely depressed, I have to remember, no, don't do it. Even though you don't feel like it, get up and take a shower. Even though you don't want to, get up and brush your hair. You know, put on some different pajamas if you got to be in pajamas all day. You know, I remembered that feeling. And the biggest reason that was so monumental to me is because when I opened my mouth and I talked to about every person in a room full of 100 people, like I was talking to everybody, every time I said that I started Bigger Than My Diagnosis because of my struggles with suicidal thoughts, depression, and my incurable disease, fibromyalgia, people were like, oh, you know, me too. And it wasn't always that they had an incurable disease. It was that people were saying, yeah, you know, I struggle with depression too. You know, I've been there where I've felt suicidal. And I remember thinking, hey, I'm not alone. That is what made a difference to me. Because I had always felt that if I wasn't in a relationship, if I wasn't in a room full of people, then I was alone. But I'm not alone. You're not alone. Because whether you're in a room full of people or not, there are people who are dealing with the exact same things that you are dealing with. And if we would but open our mouths and talk to each other, we would find that there are so many things about us that are the same. I'm not the only one who's looked at herself in the mirror and said, I hate you. I may not have voiced it out loud, but every time I looked at my reflection and I was picking myself apart and I couldn't come up with anything nice to say about myself, that's really what I was saying. I was saying, I hate you. I literally had to get up every day, look in the mirror and say, you got the juice, okay? You got the stuff. You is fine, all right? You got it. Like, I used to be looking at myself in the mirror like, you good. And as silly as that seems, that's really what I had to do. And maybe you need to do that too. You might need to stop this video, go look at yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, you know what? You got it. That highlight though, girl, poppin'. Like, you may need to say that to yourself. Because what I've found is because we refuse to be honest with ourselves, we're struggling with things that we can get help for. There is this stigma that, oh, I don't want to go to the psychiatrist and I don't want to go to the therapist because I'm not crazy. Newsflash. Going to the psychiatrist doesn't make you crazy. Not at all. And if anybody tells you that, kindly ignore them. It simply means that your mental health has reached a point that you are no longer able to cope with it by yourself and you need help. Now, the second part to that is, if you are going to therapy, please be honest with your therapist. I spent 7 years in therapy, and about 2 months of that, I was actually honest with my therapist, which is why I didn't make any progress in therapy. So you don't make the same mistakes I did. And what I need you to understand is that even when you don't feel like there's an other side to depression, there is. Even when you feel like you are never going to come out on the other side of this, you can. Okay, I was 14 when I started my battle, my war with depression. March of this year means I was 25. That is how long it took me to get on the other side of it. Now, it doesn't, it may not take you that long. It doesn't have to take you that long. That's my personal journey. All I'm trying to get you to understand is that you need to be patient with yourself. But also don't be afraid to push yourself beyond your limits. If today you got out of bed, you took 5 steps, tomorrow take 10. The next day, take 20. Then you slowly but surely, you get up, you do your hair, you take a shower, you put on fresh clothes, you go out just to feel the sunshine on your face. Every single day, you need to do something to fight back. And I don't mean fight back with little tiny punches. Oh, I think I'll hit depression like this. No, I need you to full on get up each and every day and knock depression in its face. I need you to own who you are and say, I'm not gonna be bound by this thing forever. No matter how long it takes, I'm gonna get on the other side of depression. No matter what it takes, I'm gonna win this war. No matter what I have to do, I am not going to quit. You cannot quit. You do not have the option of giving up on yourself. There is somebody in this world who is literally waiting for you to get up and walk in your purpose, to get up and fight back against depression so they can have the hope that they need, that there is life on the other side of this thing. You are an amazingly beautiful human being. I need you to start acting like it. I had to start acting like it. And I talk about this in my book, Finding the Bigger You. I talk about the steps that I took to come out on the other side, to find the bigger me. And busy being bigger is literally anything that you are doing to get on the other side of your situation, circumstances, and diagnosis. It is anything that you can do to get on the other side of depression. Some days when my fibro is acting up and I'm like, oh my God, I can't stand this disease and this is going to be the rest of my life, and I feel myself sinking and sinking and sinking, you know what I'll do? I will literally go eat like ice cream or something, or cherries or something little. But for that moment, it's like soon as the fruit or the ice cream hits my mouth, it's like, this is good. And that little thing right there, it breaks up those depressive thoughts. And it's like, if I can break them up for 2 seconds, I can push that door wider and wider, and I can step through. So you need to figure out, what is your cherry, your ice cream, or whatever it is that will help you open that door. Because depression, it's not the rest of your life. It's not who you are. It's just something that you're dealing with today. You are so amazing, and I am looking forward to you coming out on the other side of this thing. So that means you gotta get up. Gotta put your boxing gloves on. and you need to tell depression that it can't have you anymore. I am Sabrina L. Washington, and I will see you guys next week. Always remember, just because you are affected does not mean you can't be effective. Now go kick depression's butt. Bye.